watching NotesIn9.
Hello, and welcome to NotesIn9. I'm David Leedy. Episode 199. Don't you just love those nines? It's my favorite number these days. Bitmask, Enums, and Creating Excel Reports from XPages. Yeah, this is as painful as it sounds, but hopefully it's going to be worth it. And there's pain here. We're eating hot wings today. I mean, not like mild hot wings, but like ghost pepper wings. This is big stuff. So this is the grand finale of my session from MWLUG 2016 in this XPages series, these last 6 episodes that I published. Everything here is already on GitHub. So you can download it. I've not always been good at that, so I made sure that this time, damn it, I'm going to do it right. So you can get this and play with this. And if you don't know how to download it from GitHub or so, there's other source control shows. Most of those have used Bitbucket so far. You use source tree pointing towards GitHub. You'll probably be able to figure it out, and hopefully I'll get a show on using Git. I'm new to Git too. Everybody else in the world uses GitHub. I love Bitbucket, but we're gonna try Git and see how that goes. All right, a bitmask. No, I can't explain it. So we're gonna use it with Lotus Script. So if you remember in Lotus Script, we had this message box business, right? And you had buttons, icon, default, and mode, and you had a number for each of those. So the buttons had 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The icon 16, 32, 48, 64. The default, and the mode, they all had their own different numbers. So, and then you combined those numbers and you passed them into the message box statement. And you never knew what number it was, but the system knew. The program knew which options you chose by the total number. Okay, that's like what Bitmask is. Okay, that's the best way I can explain it. But it's kind of like that. Okay, so let's look at it again. So it's for few to many options. Like if you think about like hamburger toppings, okay, you get a number, which is, I think it's called like an ordinal, and typically in the typical scenario in the Java that we're going to use, it doubles each time. 1, 2, 4, 8, stuff like that. So you could call lettuce, ketchup, mustard is 4, onions is 8, hot peppers is 16, etc. And then you add those up, and whichever ones you pick, you can determine which options were selected, okay, from the total number. Well, I can't make that determination, but Java can at least. And if that number does get too large, you can Mark Watney it and convert it to hexadecimal, I believe. I haven't done that yet, but I wouldn't think there'd be a major problem in that. Just convert it back and stuff like that. So why do you need to use a bitmask? Well, here's what happened to me in the day job. Is I had a bunch of XPages databases, and they all kind of talk to each other. I had to have some separate databases here because we had some pre-existing stuff. So I made this reports database. To call it, and it was a standalone. And I wanted to have this downloadable Excel file where the user could choose which columns they wanted from a data object for one of my objects that I personally made or so. And I had to I couldn't use scope variables or anything there. So how do I pass the number of columns they selected? It could have been up to 50. How do I pass that via URL to this other database, this other code that's calling it? So this solved that problem. Even if you're inside your own database, so let's say you have like a user profile set up or so, and maybe you have 10 to 20 different access rights or so. Maybe you can turn on, he can do this button or she can do that button or this report or that report or so. So a bitmask might be a good use for that too, to store and just track those options. Sometimes you can also use what's called an enum set and all that, and we're going to kind of see that a little bit. So this is useful. An enum, let's talk about enums. We talked about it a couple shows ago. I like to think of an enum as a combo box for programmers, okay? So it's useful for when you're working inside your code with a fixed set of constants, so that it prevents you from misspelling something. So a very simple enum would be public enum color, red, blue, green, and yellow. But there's no functionality there. You can add functionality and methods inside this enum, and then it gets really powerful. So that complexity it can be built in there if you like it to be. And again, it's designed to at compile time make sure you don't misspell yellow, for instance, or use a color that you thought was there but really isn't. So you're not just passing strings back and forth. Um, so for Excel, the Excel port of this demo, we're going to use Apache Poi, which is free, and we like that. And we're going to create a worksheet with Apache Poi, and we're going to build the header row. And the header row is going to loop through all the values of the enum. Okay, and the enum is going to be the possible columns. But it's only going to use the ones that are contained in the bitmask number. And then it's going to build the sheet content. And be careful about data types here. Okay. Yeah, that's right. I did this one. Other than the Bitmask business, which the guys at work helped me with, I did this mostly on my own, I think. So, who knew? I sure did. Okay, so let's look and see what it looks like. Okay, Excel report right here, right here. Let's look at this bad boy. Okay, so standard name. So the way I set this up is in my enum, I have it's always going to have these fields here, no matter what. You can't even take them off, right? So it's always going to have those. And then you have the option for additional columns, okay? So if you look at the bitmask here, I don't know why I put 3 colons here. That looks dumb. But it's 15. So these 4 things equal 15. And if I add address, now it's 31. If I remove it, it's back to 15. So if I run the, and refresh doesn't really do anything here. If I run download Excel now, and so I'm calling this X agent, basically. I'm passing in a state, which is hard-coded, and it passed in that bitmask if you saw that. So if I bring up the Excel, ID, first name, last name, for everyone in that state. Wow, isn't that awesome? From me, too. I can't get over that. Okay, so additional columns. So if we click on this, now I should, and the data job I did do is I did exclude the hard-coded ones. I didn't do that in this demo. But now let's say address, city, state, zip. We say OK. Now look at the bitmask, 255. So 255 means all this stuff should show. We download again, and we wait for a minute, and we're in our 56th test about this. Address, city, state, zip, booyah! That's what we like to say when things work. Okay, and here you go, and it just works. Now, the order is kind of hard-coded in based on the enum, so the user doesn't really get to choose the order. I'm sure that would be possible, but I'm not doing it. But it works, and I'm so happy, and hopefully you are too. So that's what it looks like. So let's see how this stuff works. So we're going to start with this demo 5. There's a stupid page name. So XPages, demo 5. Okay, so what we have on here is we've got just a little kind of form layout row business here. And if we go to source, and of course we're using the controller, page controller that we've done before, we're going to say the default columns is here. And it's bound to something, I'm sure. Not sure. Well, this is read only, so that one wouldn't be. And then the additional columns, the value is selected fields. There's a multiple separator on here, and there should be some kind of listing. I would throw value picker here, so optional fields. So let's look at our page controller. It's a good use of the page controller. No, not that one though. That would be the wrong page controller. Okay, so in the page controller, and again, we probably, what did we do here? We set this object. Okay, I'm not calling page init in this case. That's I broke my standard from the other shows. Shame on me. I should have done all this inside a page init. Okay, but oh well. Okay, so we're creating a set of the optional fields. We're creating a list of the selected fields. Why is one different than the other? Well, I'm not sure. If I would have made this a set of the selected fields, that probably would have excluded the duplicates. That's probably how I did it. And then here's a list of the default columns. Okay. So again, you have to play with this. Okay. So I'm creating optional fields as a tree set. I'm creating selected fields. We're going to go through person field dot values. So person field is a pure standalone enum class. Had I to do it over again, I probably would have put it in my person object, but I didn't. So let's find person field here. Okay, so this is an enum. So these are the acceptable fields that we can pull from. And I can add more to these as needed. Okay. And then again, this is a little more complex than the last enum that I showed, but there's just different kind of constructors and stuff here that you can go through. A get type method, and this is the key. This is one of the key ones here, and this was very hard to Google. I think Declan ended up finding this for me, or so I forget. This get flag business, and this is tells you what the bitmask number is for a particular value, I believe, or this is flag and this get flag. So this is the key stuff that makes this work. I have this little method called get standard fields. So this is where I'm setting which are the standard fields that's going to be on every report, and I'm going to have yeah, not quite sure why I have two get flags. Well, this is just overwritten. So again, this is really at the limit of my understanding of it, but I'm just telling you it works, and just copy the code. And if you have problems, then that's what Stack Overflow is for. But it does work. I do use it in the day job. The users love this ability. Okay, so this is the person field enum. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to loop through all the values, and we're going to add the optional fields. We're going to add the label for each one of them. Okay, and again, this might be a good place for me to exclude the duplicates. I have to see how I do that. Maybe we'll fix that in a future show. Then we're going to create an empty enum set for the default columns. Well, is this an enum set? That's just a list, I guess. Okay, probably a bad comment here. Then we're going to loop through and add all the columns that are in the bitmask. So person field dot values, person field. See, so it's going to loop through all of them, and then if what it's looping through is a member of this get standard fields, then we're going to add it to this default column. So it loops through the entire enum. And if it's in that get standard fields business, if it's one of these, then it's gonna add it. Okay, and that's just what it does in the constructor. And then we've got just some other stuff here for getters and setters. And this is the stupidest method that I have. It's a long story here. But this is what's going to call the X agent, which again now it is in this database, but in the day job it was not in this database. It was in another database. Okay, and it's going to pass in the state. It's going to pass in the type of report. So it could be used for different types of Excel reports, and it's going to pass in the bitmask. Okay, and then here's where it gets the bitmask, that number. So it's going to, if it's null, then it just assumes you're going to use all the standard fields. And if it's not null, then it's going to go through all your selected fields, and then this mask is a long, and it's going to it's going to use the get flag. So what is the ordinal number, or what is this the bitmask for the individual person field entry, enum entry, and it's going to add to it. And then I have a little print here, and it's going to return the get standard fields plus whatever it is you've added. Okay, and I don't remember where I used validate mask in here, but it's there. Okay, so again, it's code you can play with, but it does work. Okay, so then we're going to call this X agent. So we're going to create this feeds a link. The user would click on the link, and this is what they would call. So this is the X Excel download. So if we go here, this is just an X agent, so render just false. And we're going to say this report, var, don't forget the var, is new comms.NotesIn9.poi.excel demo, and then we're going to run it. And it should be noted that I've imported Poi as a jar in here. Okay, so we're going to find this Excel demo now, and we're going to do, what was it? We're going to do run. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of imports here. Not all are being used, I'm sure. But here's all the Poi stuff. And I forget what HSSF means. It's kind of funny. It's kind of like stupid storage, hugely stupid storage format or something like that. They didn't like Microsoft's format or so. Okay, so we got some stuff here. Now, comes from the day job, and I didn't strip out all the code or so. And so I support multiple different reports from here. So I used one object to make all these different Excel files. It was really kind of cool. And stuff like that. So we're only going to be focused on main. So there's actually an enum in here to try to just, make sure that I'm using just report types that I know of. So in the init of here, it's going to get parameters, get state, get the state ID. If it's empty, it does this. Again, there's some crap in here. But here's where we kind of like start the actual work. This.com, so we're going to get the parameter columns, which is the bitmask that is where we start with the bitmask. And then we're going to create an empty enum set. And this is how you create an empty enum set. It's kind of like creating an empty document collection. It's not that easy. So you have to kind of go through just this little workaround to do that. And then it's going to do, this should be this dot columns, but okay. Here, I'm going to change that. Okay, so it's going to loop through all the values in the enum, right? So it's going to look at one at a time, and it's going to say as if this is flagged. So if it's inside the columns that's been passed in via the URL, then we're going to add it to this.report columns. And that's how we know what's in there. Okay, this business here is more for, in the day job, I had like a multi-line field that was inside Excel. We're going to ignore that for now. Again, there's extra code in here. Okay, and then case main. So we passed that in through the URL, and I'm going to create a state object. State equals new state, and actually I'm doing this in the constructor, which is unusual for me. And I'm passing in the state ID, and then state has this method load people. Now I haven't looked at that yet in any of the other shows. So here's a state object. Here's load people. It comes in here. You pass in PA. It gets all documents by PA. There's people. I create a person object, which we looked at a show or two ago. We load that. So again, it's just a collection. It's just how you're using your objects for collection. It's not that interesting. So this person group is state.getPeople. So this is a list of all the people in the state. Okay, and then I've got a variable for report title, people in PA. And then I didn't use this .console here for some reason. So am I extending abstract? So I could have. Probably should have. So this .console. Okay. And again, you want to use this .console, so you can actually change this in the abstract object and put some logic in so it does not print on your production servers and annoy your system admin. It's kind of funny sometimes when Declan sent me those messages going, what have you done lately? So anyway, so this .console comes through here. So we're going to ignore this other business here, and then we called that run. So this was from the init, just all the setup stuff, and then we're going to run this. Okay, so first thing it does this .init. Okay, so 199. Oh, I thought this was the constructor, so that was the init. So there's probably nothing in the constructor. There is no okay, I'm sorry, I got confused there. So the constructor is empty. We call this .init, and then it sets all this stuff up, right? Okay, so we create a new workbook. We create a sheet with this .report key, which is where we set this .state ID. So if we looked at that Excel file, the tab should say PA. See, PA right there. Isn't that cool? Okay, so let's come back here. So back here, so this is right here. So row number, we do build header row, passing the row number in. So here's build header row. And what we're going to do here is we're going to go through report columns, right? Which is just the selected columns. And then we're going to say temp get label. Okay. And if we go back to here, we can look at our enum. and we have somewhere in here, we've got a get label. I don't know why I'm not over here. I don't see a get label. I've lied to you. I feel shame. Oh, that's built in. That's built into the enum. It's not something I built. So, oh, this is the wrong one. I did it again. Person field is where we want to be. No, here we go. So this dot get label. So, and again, what this is, it's not really built in, but this is the label that it's coming back with. And when you do the constructor, it's basically turning this dot name is built into the enum, and we're getting the proper case of it, if that made sense. Okay, and then we're gonna set a style here, and then update our column count so we get to row number 2. Okay, so then we call build sheet content. Okay, so we've got, we're doing some setup, so we get this helper and date style for when we work with dates. We're setting a data format here to work with the date. This is all Apache Poi stuff, so I assume there's good documentation there. And if there's no records inside a person group, then we're going to just fill in just none in the first row and be done with it. But if not, then we're going to loop through our people, our person group get people. We're going to add the row number. Well, this Skype is kind of starting to annoy me here. Sorry about that. A real podcaster would have turned that off. Let's close that. Okay, so we're going to create the cell, and then for the person, we again loop through that report columns. So just the values that we want. We create cell. We're going to do this person field get label. Temp. So I should probably put more comments in here. If the label equals this, so if it's inside this report columns, okay, then we're going to do this work. Now this bottom stuff, you don't have to worry about. I left this code in here. This was for I had this multi-line cell. So it was like a multi-line notes field that we wanted to have a multi-line cell, and this is some logic to help you size that, because Excel won't auto size by height nicely. It'll auto size by width, but not by height. So that was a pain in the butt. So assuming that you're not dealing with that, this is the meat of it. So we say this dot add cell content, and we're passing in this temp enum, the person, and then the cell. And then let's look at the add cell content. And again, I'll go back over here. So this is the enum, this person field, the key. This is the actual person object, and this is the cell it's going to go in. And again, I'm sure this could be written better. This is how I chose to do it. So now I got to figure out what data type it is. So if it's a date, we're going to do this. If it's a double, we're going to do this, because it's just kind of picky about that. And if it's string, we're going to do this. Okay? And then I had this cell multi-line business I was working with. So let's just say if it's a double, for instance. So if a double gets passed in, so assuming the key is not null, then we're going to say person get value the key to string. And then we're going to, that reads dumb, but okay, it kind of works, I guess. And then we're going to say cell set value new double value. I'm not sure why I did that as a string or so. That could probably be improved. See, this is real stuff. And what makes this work is this person get value. And this is why I said in a show ago or so, I might be getting into data objects a little bit, because that data object kind of assumes you're going to do this get value business. So I've got this object in my person class called get value. It returns objects, so it can return any date type, and I can pass in the enum, this person field enum. So this is how I can just loop through fields on a document or fields in my object. Okay, and again, I believe that can be written better. Let's look at the, let's see, I've got a lot of comments crap here. The string version of it, same thing. It can't be null. It's got to be, you know, can't. It's got to be a string type. So I'm doing a little test here, and then I'm saying set cell value, and then this helper business is created up above. And then we're going to create this rich text string, and then we're doing the person value key to string to make sure that it's string. Okay, and then here's the date version of it to get dates in there. And I believe, let's just make sure dates work. So we'll come in here, and I think there's a birthday. And notice 255, so it's going to change. That's a big jump to 1279. Doesn't matter. It is what it is. There's our URL again. I'm going to say open this. Okay, and there's a date. And if we actually, enable editing, and it actually is a date format. I don't know where the time is coming. No, the time is the current time, I guess. So that could probably be improved. But it actually is a date format. So okay, that's kind of cool. Okay, so let's come back up here. See where we're at. We were building the sheet content. So it's going to go through there. And again, this is another thing about the multi-line. When I did this multi-line thing, it's one report wanted this multi-line field underneath the row, and another report wanted the multi-line field on the same row, which is smarter. I never liked the bottom version or so. But again, this is just code that you can rip out. It was an attempt to do that logic. Okay? And then when it's all said and done, it will do the auto size column. But again, that's for width. That's not for height if you're doing that multi-line business. Okay? So now if we come back to the run business, so we built the sheet content. And then this is just kind of like standard return stuff, I guess. And this is where the file name gets set. So it's like pa.xls in this case. And then we write it, and then we flush it out. Wow. So I know that was I kind of talked pretty fast there and stuff like that. I'm just tired after recording like 5 shows in a row. But the code is in there, and I should have hopefully decent comments throughout. So just remember that there is extra garbage in here that you don't need. But it is in there, and it does work. So hopefully you can bring the demo database down, get that working relatively easily, and then pick it apart at your convenience. And that's the demo. If you have any questions for me, as long as it's not on that damn enum, I'm happy to help. If it is, we'll figure it out together, I guess. But here's my contact information, and I thank you very much for your time.